Welcome to 3x5 news, views, and reviews. Scribble and index cards. We get in and we get out fast, so keep up. Imagine if you were a member of the armed forces, deployed to a city by the Trump administration, and you were ordered to attack, even shoot, citizens. Or stationed in the Caribbean or the Pacific, that you were ordered to participate in a strike on one of those so-called narco-terrorist boats. Even worse, ordered to kill survivors as on the first such strike. Michigan Senator Elissa Slotkin, a Democrat, is a former CIA analyst and Iraq War veteran. The New York Times recently reported that she had heard from active military that they were concerned about the legality of the Trump administration's orders. Appearing on the Bulwark, she said that they told her things like, open quote, "I don't know, this is getting really fuzzy and I'm nervous about it," unquote. And, open quote, "Could I be held personally liable?" Close quote. Meanwhile, the Washington Post reported, open quote, "Junior officers fearing potential legal exposure ask military lawyers," close quote, "judge advocate generals, or JAGs, many of whom have already been fired by the Trump administration, open quote, "for written sign-off before taking part in the strikes," close quote. Okay, that's new. Finally, drawing the camera back from close-ups to the big picture, at military events, Senator Slotkin heard, open quote, "I'm really worried that people are going to start seeing the military as bad guys," close quote. This inspired her to organize the video that you have no doubt heard or about or seen, with 6 Democratic lawmakers who served in either the military or intelligence, including Representative Jason Crow of Colorado, a former Army Ranger, Representative Chris Deluzio of Pennsylvania, a Navy veteran, and Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, a former Navy pilot before he was an astronaut. Open quote, "Our laws are clear," close quote, said Kelly. Open quote, "You can refuse illegal orders," close quote. Deluzio said, open quote, "You must refuse illegal quarters," close quote. I am always skeptical that, conditioned as the military is to obey, that such objections would be registered by more than a tiny handful. But I suppose that can be enough. This really struck a nerve in Republicans. More to the point, they lost their bleep. Trump wrote on Truth Social, open quote, "Seditious behavior, punishable by death." And, open quote, "Hang them, George Washington Wood. Hang them, George Washington Wood," close quote. Okay, it's true that Washington used to hang a lot of people. In fact, if Trump, as bad or worse than Britain's king at the time of the Revolutionary War, George III, were around then, he too would have been destined for the gallows. Trump is a Tory. Meanwhile, Stephen Miller said in an interview, open quote, "When you have one set of civilian leaders, members of Congress, urging elements of our security services and our armed forces to defy the president and to disobey the chain of command, that is a general call for rebellion," close quote. He continued, open quote, "When we say that Democrats are communists, we don't just mean that they believe in the state control of property. We mean they've adapted a method of thinking in which any use of force is justified for their state of power and control," close quote. Actually, a method of thinking in which any use of force is justified for their state of power and control seems to be describing the Trump administration. The same kettle calling the black mentality also seemed to be in effect when Miller evoked communists. Inclined to Russia and Putin like Trump, he is an honorary communist. While Russia may not be a communist state any longer, Putin, Mr. Once a KGB, always a KGB, is a communist dead-ender, someone who hangs on to a lost cause until the bitter end. I don't know if either Putin or Trump will come to a bitter end, but you can be sure that once uprooted, they will leave a bitter aftertaste in our collective mouth. Anyway, by pushing back against the 6 congresspersons who advised the military that they should not follow unlawful orders, Trump and Miller, as many have pointed out by now, didn't even bother to use the obvious first line of defense, that the Trump administration was not issuing illegal orders. In an aside, they were. It was as if they were acknowledging their orders were illegal. Let's return to when Miller said that Democrats believe any use of force is justified. Who said anything about the use of force? The congresspersons were in fact speaking out against the use of force when it is illegal, that is. Or does Miller fear that soldiers, in the course of objecting to an order, would turn their guns on their spears and, as they used to say in the Vietnam War days, frag them? Actually a thing, killing dozens. In those days, it meant blowing up superior officers with fragmentation grenades. These days would probably just be a standard issue M4 or its replacement, the XM7. Why does Miller's mind just assume the Democrats would use force? Because it's his lingua franca. He just assumes that, like him with the boat executions, the use of force is universally reflexive. But how many others, when watching that video and hearing those words, would think questioning orders is a violent act when, obviously, it's the opposite? Virtually no one, maybe even including much of MAGA. Miller is just so colossally weird, so supremely strange. A minor demon in human form, such as one called Aman. They are identified in some grimoire or magic book from the distant I say they because you can't tell if it's he, she, or it. They are identified in some grimoire or magic book from the distant past as a, quote, Marquis of Hell, sometimes associated with attacking strangers or those who trespass, close quote. Also, unbidden, ChatGPT made up some demons. In an aside, has anyone asked ChatGPT to guide them through casting spells? The possibilities are endless. Anyway, one of those demons is Jarul, a xenophobic demon who despises anything not of his realm and can be found standing watch at broken portals and, oh yeah, tearing apart intruders. Then there's Vesthar, the inhospitable. Vesthar, the inhospitable. A demon who feeds on trespassers and can, open quote, smell unfamiliar blood from miles away. Note that I didn't even mention Miller to ChatGPT. Scary how it seems almost to have sniffed him out. When Miller is not feeding on migrants, what else does this particular demon eat? On the debut episode of her podcast, Miller's wife, Katie, said that he eats only mayonnaise, open quote, literally, close quote, she added. I am sorry to tell you, Stephen, but if that's your plan, it won't make you more Anglo. Both his paternal and maternal great-great-grandparents were Jews who migrated to America, like some of mine, from the Russian Empire around the turn of the last century because of the pogroms or attacks on Jews. Because of his rejection of empathy, Miller is apparently incapable of imagining that today's immigrants, including refugees, are no different from his ancestors seeking asylum in the United States. In an update, the Defense Department said it is opening an investigation into Mark Kelly for urging members of the military to refuse to obey illegal orders from the Trump administration. Good luck with that. I'm sure we'll go as well as the cases filed against James Comey and Letitia James. In other words, tossed out. I have heard some say the Trump administration is killing those drug boats as a way of accustoming people to the use of illegal, deadly force against actual American citizens on American soil. In fact, by calling those in the boats narco-terrorists, they could justify, to themselves anyway, killing drug dealers on sight in America. Well, maybe not, because even if an assault is launched in the dead of night, dealers, usually armed to the teeth, would be aware that they were fighting for their lives. The ensuing bloodbath would leave many fatalities, including innocent bystanders. The Trump administration mostly attacks those who can't fight back, like those in the alleged drug boats.